Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. This week we're going to be going over Nightmask, a new universe title from Marvel from 1986. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own work. This is called Random Access. It's a full-size, not full color. It's been full color the previous months, and I'm probably going to get back to that, but for now, I'm just doing some black and white, and it's 12 pages, and you can get this at Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Alexander Turbin to check it out. And there's also backup stories by Paul Courtjohn and Chris Knox. And there's always different covers. This is by Jamie Barrows, and it's an amazing cover. And so, yeah, you can also check these out at alexanderturbin.com, and or you could message me at alexturbin0441 at Instagram. At alexanderturbin.com, you can also check out all of my other work, including Mutandis and The Forlorn and stuff like that. But now let's get back to my Nightmask. Back in 1986, I was reading lots of X-Men and Batman and Daredevil and Thor and stuff like that. And then they pulled this new universe crap on me. I didn't know any better. I was just getting into comics. So I was like, hey, sure, I'll try it. And so like the previous one of the episodes before that I've done, I did Justice, which was another title by the new universe. And I guess it was just a way for Marvel and Jim Shooter to try to kind of galvanize the comics market and Marvel's foray into a different kind of world. Much less successful than what would happen later on with the Ultimates. That just kind of took off and had some really cool stuff. The new universe actually did have some cool stuff. But it was very sparing. Actually, when I first read this back in 1986, I really didn't enjoy it that much. I don't know why I didn't. I think I didn't really know what to make of it. I enjoyed Justice. I enjoyed Starbrand. I didn't really enjoy DP7, but I still kept reading it for up to 10 or 12 issues, even though I really didn't love it. One of the things about the new universe is they didn't really have their top talent. Their best artist probably was John Romita Jr., and that's basically why I kept reading Starbrand for as long as I did, and stopped as soon as he stopped being the artist for it. But I digress. Nightmask #1, New Universe, 1986. So like with the other one, I'm not really going to go into the reviewing the art and the writing too much afterwards. So we're just going to go through this and kind of make our way through this issue. This is very story heavy, very script heavy, very dialogue heavy book, and it's not very action packed. There's very very little action. It's not very superhero-y. He does have this superhero costume, and I mean he kind of has a superpower, but it's not like laser beams out of your eyeballs or anything. So. It starts off, this person is running through the darkness, and his name's Keith. I'm not entirely sure. You find out that's what his name is. But he's running in the darkness, and he then comes upon a white light, and he jumps into the white light because the white light is calling to him. And here he comes. This is very reminiscent of Frank Miller's Daredevil. Those I'm going to go through those eventually. The the Born Again and all that kind of stuff. It's just too amazing to not go through. I know everybody has gone through Frank Miller stuff nonstop, incessantly. But I love Frank Miller, so eventually I'm gonna go through his stuff. Just I mean, I like to go through the black and whites of the same era, and some of the smaller titles and things like that. But I really do love Frank Miller and all of that stuff too. So I'm eventually I'm going to get into that as well. Um, the Awakening. So the beginning of all of the titles of New Universe. I don't know if it happened in Justice though. But anyway, the beginning of the New Universe was a white flash, and I actually think it has something to do with the Ultimates. I think they tied that in to it. But and I'm not entirely sure um, what the event was. I think there was possibly the Beyonders universe um, that they used from Secret Wars. I'm not sure if anybody really knows the ins and outs of the white light and the new universe story and everything like that. Please fill me in because I'd like to really fully understand what's going on in the new universe. So basically you have this girl in a wheelchair, and she's staying next to her brother who's in a coma, and this nurse. I don't know if she's a nurse, but she's also a um, therapy. It's a physical therapist of some sort, and an orderly, and they all come in. Apparently, I don't know what happened, but there was a bright light from the shades. I guess one of the doctors had ordered the shades open to hopefully awaken the Keith, who's in a coma, and she's complaining about it, but the orderly says maybe it was a good idea, and blah blah blah. Um, and they have a lot of dialogue between each other. Um, just kind of not really saying any backstory, but just kind of exploring each other as a character. This book is super heavy characterization. Uh, it's very much like a Claremont written book. If I didn't know that this was written by, and I didn't ever say, was Archie Goodwin. He created it and wrote it, and the penciler is Tony Salmon, and inker is Brett Blevins. I don't really like Brett Blevins too much, but you can't really tell the difference in his inking here. Um, so they just have a little bit of background and introduce who the characters are. There's the sister of Keith and the orderly, and there's I can't remember what his name is. Mr. Mercado. No, that's the orderly. I can't remember what his name is. Anyway, he's the ward of the two because they had their parents were killed in a bomb, which you'll find out later. There was a terrorist attack in an airport. So he wakes up. Keith wakes up, and he's saying that it was because of his sister and because of the white light. And so, really, did this white light wake him up as the universe became into being, and this whole universe just kind of exploded? I'm not entirely sure, but it's a pretty cool concept. The new universe concept really is not a bad one. I mean, they wanted to have characters that were anchored even more in reality than the Marvel universe, which is a great way to go. Really, at the same time they were doing Epic and stuff like that. Really, it would have been even more brave for them to have done a new universe where it's no superpowers. That would have been even more intriguing for me, I think. Like if they had, taken Love and Rockets, say they had given Gilbert and Jaime Hernandez carte blanche in a universe, and that would have been freaking amazing. But anyway, I digress again. So he goes back into his dreams. It really goes back and forth between dreams and reality, which is kind of a popular theme back in the 80s with um, Dreamscape, I think was a movie. There's just a lot of movies, and Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street. There's a lot of movies and a lot of stuff going on in media that's about dreams and stuff like that. I believe this is almost when Sandman starts too. So dreaming and nightmares is a pretty popular topic at the time, which it's always a cool topic. So Keith is actually having a memory of when he was going to go to Zurich and study with this professor that was a friend of his father's and his mother's. And the sister was there, and she's not in a wheelchair. And he's really reliving the what happened to get him in a coma. And you can see this bag is dropped by this person, and Keith mistakes his bag for the dropped bag, and as we know now, it was a bomb. And the I don't know if some of this is jumbled because did like they're all discussing who's going to carry the bag for Keith, and the dad eventually is like, I'm going to carry the bag for Keith, and it's, as we know, a bomb from a terrorist, and he blows up the airport, and Keith doesn't get away. He goes into a coma. It puts his sister in a wheelchair, and his parents are dead. And yeah, so it's just a horrible event, which is how almost all great stories start. Is a horrible event. Um, Batman, Superman, Bambi, everything Disney starts out horribly and then uh, works itself out. So although I mean they have this thing called fridging. A woman, I guess, is I can't remember if exactly it's called fridging a woman, where the protagonist, love interest dies, and that's what drives him. And a lot of people don't like that kind of driving, but that's really kind of silly because it's one of the biggest and best ways to have a character be motivated by something is the death of a loved one, whether it's a girlfriend or a wife or kids or family, whatever. I mean, look at the Punisher. His whole existence is because his family dies, and he's one of the greatest characters of all time, in my opinion, anyway. So Keith, he's kind of dealing with his he feels guilty about the whole bag and his family being killed and stuff. And this is where there's really a lot of the sister is going through some therapy, physical therapy. I don't know if she ever regains the use of her legs or not. But it really just, it's a lot of character development between Keith and his sister and the therapist. They really kind of all get along. Like I said, super heavy on the dialogue. It's very, like I said, Claremont-esque. It doesn't have his je ne sais quoi, his way of writing, but it certainly is down that pathway of writing the story, and it's actually entertaining. When I reread it now, I think I just maybe wasn't in the mood. Sometimes you have to be in the mood for a certain kind of comic, and sometimes you're in the mood for an action thing, and sometimes you're in the mood for an in-depth thing. And I was just in the mood for this, 35 years later or whatever. And I found it very intriguing and enjoyable to read. Um, I am going to go and look for more Nightmasks actually if I dollar dive or dumpster dollar bin dive. I'm going to be looking for these new universe Nightmasks because I really kind of enjoyed reading it. The art, like I said, I'm just going to go through the art as I'm reading it. The art is very commendable. It's not weak. There's a lot of nice details, a lot of nice movement, a lot of nice character, a lot of nice emotion. There's plenty of backgrounds when backgrounds are needed. Like look at the family just standing around. One of the hardest things to draw in comics is just people standing around, just milling about. That was one of the things I first read about John Byrne was like, yeah, I do the action scenes really easily and they're fun and stuff. It's just, the X-Men just kind of sitting around a table talking is the most difficult part. And it really truly is because it takes, comic book artists, they start out just drawing superheroes and action scenes and stuff like that. So it really takes a lot of effort to do a quiet scene. It's one of the reasons I love John Romita Jr. so much, because he does those quiet scenes very much, very well, I think anyway. And actually, this book reminds me of a lot of Romita Jr.'s art. It's the line work is very reminiscent of it, which is very awesome. So Keith goes into another dream. He never really knows when he's dreaming. He just kind of, when he comes to a part where he thinks he's dreaming or whatever, it kind of just clicks for him. And there's this guy being pulled by tentacles, and the guy is just freaking out, and Keith tries to help him, and he's pulling at him and pulling at him, and this is when he realizes he transforms in his dream into the clothes that he was wearing in the airport, and he realizes that this is the guy that dropped the bag in the airport that actually blew up and killed his parents and hurt his sister. And then we're introduced to these giant hands, and it's this character called the Gnome, and apparently he's the big bad guy of the issue. Um, so Keith wakes up. He's always, waking up all wound up and excited and stuff, scared and whatnot. This is a very emotional time for him. Obviously, he's lost his parents. He feels guilty. His sister is in a wheelchair. He has nothing. So it's really emotional time, and you really can see that in the artwork, which is really cool. And there's a lot more dialogue and exposition and characters and stuff like that. They wheel out a guy next door who's completely covered in bandages. And Keith, I don't know if you realize it's here or later on, that this guy, who also just had a heart attack, and he's all bandaged, and he just had a heart attack, and Keith realizes that is the guy that put the bomb where it exploded and killed his parents. So they're out in the garden part of the hospital or something, the parkway or something, and they're talking to, I cannot remember who his name is, but that's his guardian. He was friends with their parents and stuff. So they're talking about the dreams, and they're talking about they're trying to convince him that Keith can actually go into other people's dreams and kind of dream walk and stuff. And he finally, Keith drew a picture of the guy who's actually in the bandages and stuff, and he finally agrees with them and says, let's go do some tests and stuff like that. And then they get the therapist, the physical therapist, to help them. Keith goes into her dreams, and she's having a nice, pleasant dream, but he kind of makes a disturbance, which once he disturbs the host, I guess, the dream goes all crazy and wacky. So then he wakes up, and they have a lot more dialogue and stuff like that. And their benefactor or whatever is saying how dangerous it is, because I guess the sister helps Keith in the dreams, and she pulls him out of the dreams if something untoward happens. And he also has this little moon scar on his forehead, and that I think is kind of a symbol of his power and stuff. And he's always going into dreams, but now he purposely goes into this other guy's dream, the terrorist that dropped the bomb, because he wants to bring the terrorist to justice, and to also find out who the gnome is and stuff like that. The gnome is a really cool character. He's just like this giant troll kind of creature guy, and he's using the terrorist to capture or to lure in Keith, because he's found out that Keith can go into other people's dreams, and he's realizing, or Keith is realizing, that this gnome has something to do with his parents being killed and the terrorists and all that stuff, he realizes that he's really the big bad guy and that he was just using this regular human to do his bidding, really. And so the gnome is about to crush him and smash him with his big hammer and stuff when Slamo, he turns into Nightmask, which is really kind of too bad. I mean, it's a unique, not really unique superhero way of doing things. I kind of wish it would just had not done that, but it's Marvel, it's comic books. I guess you kind of had to. He becomes Nightmask, and he's gonna fight this big gnome creature, even though gnomes are small. So I don't understand why he's called the gnome. Um, although they talk about why he's called the gnome later on. So the gnome actually says that he's stronger than Nightmask, and Nightmask is just kind of taking a beating, and he's about to get destroyed when they pull him out of the dream. I guess the sister pulls him out of the dream, or the doctor pulls him out of the dream, or something. They all do, and another doctor barges in. I don't know why there's these interludes where I guess they just had to fill up space because there's just not a lot of plot. I mean, there's a lot of plot here, but it's done in such a way where it's just kind of compacted. And they have this heart surgeon barge in, and he's complaining about this therapist using the terrorist patient, his charts and stuff. He gets all angry and slams the door on his way out, and I'm not entirely sure why they added that. Maybe later on in other issues it becomes something integral to the story, but I'm not entirely sure. So Keith and his sister, they're talking about it, and the mentor or whatever was saying that it's dangerous for her and him, but so Keith doesn't want danger to come to his sister, so he gets her to take some medication to knock her out, and so he can go and investigate the gnome and the terrorists all by himself. So then we transition from the doctor and the head of the hospital. This is super St. Elsewhere, ER, any hospital show. The director is a bad, always trying to cut corners. There's there's a mishmash of different types of show or different type of story going on. You've got this whole hospital drama thing going on, which is kind of interesting. And so Keith turns into Nightmask, and he goes into the into the dream world. But before this, I forgot to mention the sister had gotten a book of nomadic mythology, like Norse mythology and European mythology and stuff like that. And she was talking about how it was German, and that's when it clicked for Keith what was going on. So he goes into this dream world, and he goes into the terrorist dream, and he goes to confront actually the gnome and the terrorist, and I guess he just, like, the gnome just is torturing the terrorist, like he's in a coma, so he's always giving him a hard time, saying he's gonna die. No, he's not gonna die. Yes, he is gonna die. So they confront each other. They're gonna have a big battle, but no. As soon as they're about to fight, Nightmask just says his name, Dr. Kleinman, which is the place that he was going to visit in Europe. The friend of his dad and his mom, and the place that he was going to go participate in is like a study thing, a summer study program or something like that. It's his place that he was going. And because he had created some device where it let him walk into other people's dreams and interact and stuff. So by him naming him, which in a lot of fantasy, sci-fi kind of things, the name of a character is their weakness. So they always try to hide that. And in this, he gives him a name, and he loses his power because he knows who he is. He's Dr. Kleinman, so he's no longer a threat. And the terrorist now realizes that the the Kleinman is no longer a threat either. He finally can go off into death and kill himself, creating a chain reaction of the dismantling. I guess that's what happens when you die, the dismantling of the dream world, because you're in their head. And they're both trying to escape, and Nightmask can leave the dreaming world without any kind of mechanical assistance, but Dr. Kleinman can't, so he's falling into the abyss, and Nightmask accidentally lets him go, and he doesn't know if he's alive or dead. He wakes up, and they're just kind of talking about what happened with the terrorist and what happened with the gnome and stuff. And then the final scene is Dr. Kleinman, and he's in a coma, and they're talking about whether or not he's going to wake up, and all of his machinery was destroyed, and they say he will want to rebuild it. So does he become a big bad guy, or what happens? I don't know. We'll have to see. He's definitely Keith is probably going to go try to punish him at some sort anyway. But yeah, this was an enjoyable read. There's lots of dialogue, it's pretty fun. Even though it's not action adventure, it's a lot of it's more like what was that Christopher Nolan movie? I can't remember. In something. Anyway, it was a good read, a good fun read. I enjoyed the art. The inking is a little weak. I feel like that they're trying to be John Romita Jr., and that's why the weak inks, as far as a lot of the lines aren't connecting and stuff, and it's just real thin lines and kind of weak. They just don't know how to do John Romita Jr. the way John Romita Jr. does, but they gave it a good try. It's good. I like the artwork. I like the expressions and the details and stuff like that. And I enjoyed the writing. This was a very enjoyable read for me, and I really liked it. For me, I'm gonna give this an 8. The art could have been a little bit better. It could have been a little bit heavier on the inks, and even though I enjoyed it, 8 isn't really a bad score, I don't think, for a book, especially New Universe. Like, New Universe gets a bad rap on a lot of stuff because a lot of people thought it was not very good. But there are actually a lot of books and a lot of stories that are actually pretty cool in the New Universe. So I'm giving this a solid 8 because I think the writing and the art are very good, and the story was actually pretty cool and much better than I thought it was. And everybody knows that if I give a score of over a 6, it's got to have me go looking for more issues, and that's definitely what I'm going to do. I'm going to go looking for some more Nightmask issues and see what I can find. But if you guys are new to the channel and you just stumbled across us, I'd really appreciate if you consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, and also giving me a thumbs up. I'd really, really appreciate that. And if you guys have read New Universe and or Nightmask or anything like that, and you enjoyed it, let me know. If you hated it, let me know. I really like your guys' comments in the comment section, letting me know whether you guys liked the books or not. So for this week, Nightmask, a New Universe comic from 1986. And I will see you guys next week, and thanks for watching.